Ryan sat in his truck, hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. His heart raced, but his mind was disturbingly calm, as if it were detached from his body. He had just come across a discovery that flipped his world upside down. His wife, Amelia, had been unfaithful. It started innocently enough, or so it seemed. A forgotten phone left on the kitchen counter while she showered. Ryan wasn't the snooping type. He respected Amelia's privacy. But the phone buzzed with a message, and the name that popped up wasn't one he recognized, Liam C. The message was mundane, or so it seemed at first glance. Last night was unforgettable. Can't wait to see you again. Ryan's brow furrowed as a sinking feeling gripped him. He scrolled further up the thread, his breath hitching as a string of messages confirmed what he didn't want to believe. It wasn't just a fling. It was an affair, and from the dates, it had been going on for months. Worse yet, the name Liam rang a faint bell. It took him a moment, but then it hit him. Liam had been Amelia's high school boyfriend. Her first love, as she had nostalgically referred to him once, years ago, in a passing comment over a glass of wine. She had mentioned how they drifted apart when he moved to another state for college. It had seemed like nothing then, a distant memory. Now, it was clear it was anything but. Ryan felt a knot form in his stomach as he pieced it together. The late nights at her book club, the sudden increase in her phone screen time, the new perfume she'd started wearing without explanation, all signs he dismissed as unimportant or coincidental, suddenly painted a glaringly obvious picture. He shoved the phone back onto the counter just as Amelia entered the kitchen, her hair still wet from the shower. She smiled warmly at him, oblivious to the storm brewing inside him. "You're up early," she said, pouring herself a cup of coffee. Ryan swallowed hard. His voice strained as he replied, "Yeah, couldn't sleep." He avoided her eyes, afraid his raw emotions would betray him. As she busied herself with breakfast, humming to herself as if nothing was wrong, Ryan knew he couldn't confront her. Not yet. He needed time to think, to process, and to figure out what to do next. This wasn't just about betrayal. It was about dismantling the life they had built together. It was about survival. Ryan spent the rest of the day in a haze. He went through the motions at work, pretending to listen during meetings and forcing a smile when coworkers cracked jokes. Inside, he was unraveling. He replayed the messages in his head, wondering how he could have missed the signs. The betrayal felt like a splinter lodged deep in his chest, small but agonizing, impossible to ignore. That evening, as he pulled into the driveway, he hesitated before shutting off the engine. The house stood before him, looking exactly as it had every other day, a charming suburban home with warm lights glowing through the windows. But tonight, it felt foreign, tainted by the truth he had uncovered. Inside, Amelia was setting the table for dinner. Their 8-year-old daughter, Lily, was chattering excitedly about her school project. Amelia nodded along, but Ryan could tell she wasn't really paying attention. It wasn't the first time. She had grown more distant lately, and he had chalked it up to stress or exhaustion. Now, he knew better. Ryan forced himself to smile at Lily as he hung up his coat. He wasn't ready to let on that anything was wrong. Not yet. He needed more information before he confronted Amelia. If he came at her with accusations now, she'd likely deny everything or twist it around. He had to be prepared. As the evening wore on, Ryan observed Amelia more closely than he ever had before. The way her phone was always within arm's reach. How she angled the screen away from him when a message came in. The forced laughter when he made a joke. It was subtle, but the distance between them was undeniable. That night, after Amelia and Lily went to bed, Ryan stayed up late. He sat in the living room with his laptop, the glow of the screen illuminating his tense face. With every click, he delved deeper into a world he never thought he'd explore, searching how to handle infidelity, how to gather evidence, and how to protect himself legally. It felt surreal, typing those words into a search bar. A week ago, he had been planning their family vacation for the summer. Now, he was planning for the fallout of a betrayal that could destroy their family. Ryan didn't just want confirmation of Amelia's affair. He needed to understand it. What had drawn her back to Liam after all these years? Was it boredom? Regret? Something he had done? Or failed to do? At 2 a.m., He found himself scrolling through Amelia's social media. He had never paid much attention to it before, but now he analyzed every photo, every post. It didn't take long to find a clue. A picture from a few months ago, a group photo from her book club dinner. Most of the faces were unfamiliar, but one stood out. Liam. He was older now, his boyish features replaced by a rugged handsomeness. He had the kind of smile that exuded charm, but to Ryan, it only looked smug. Amelia had never mentioned Liam being back in town. Seeing them together in the photo made Ryan's blood boil. He clicked through Liam's profile, scrolling past pictures of fancy dinners, gym selfies, and his restored classic car. Every image seemed to scream confidence and success. But there were cracks in the facade. A cryptic post about starting over suggested that Liam had recently gone through a divorce. Ryan leaned back in his chair, the pieces slowly falling into place. Liam was a ghost from Amelia's past, one who had clearly re-entered her life with purpose. But was it love, lust, or something else entirely? The thought of confronting Amelia now gnawed at him, but he knew he had to bide his time. He needed more than suspicion. He needed proof. Tomorrow, he decided, he'd take the next step. He'd contact someone who could get him the answers he needed. The next morning, Ryan woke before dawn. The house was silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. He moved quietly, careful not to wake Amelia or Lily. In the garage, he sat in his truck with the windows rolled up, staring at his phone. He scrolled through his contacts, hesitating on a name. Kevin Dawson. Kevin was a buddy from college who had gone on to become a private investigator. They hadn't spoken much over the years, except for the occasional holiday text. But if there was one person Ryan could trust with this, it was him. Ryan tapped the number and waited. The phone rang twice before Kevin's voice came on, groggy but alert. Ryan? What's up, man? It's early. Hey, Kevin, Ryan began, his voice thick with emotion. I need a favor. It's not something I ever thought I'd ask you for. Kevin's tone shifted immediately. What's going on? Ryan hesitated, the words catching in his throat. Saying it out loud made it feel more real. I think Amelia's cheating on me. There was a pause. Damn, Kevin finally said. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you sure? I found messages on her phone, and it's with someone I know. Someone from her past. Kevin sighed. That's rough, man. I'm assuming you want me to look into it? Yeah, Ryan replied. I need proof. Something solid. Kevin didn't hesitate. All right. Send me her schedule when she goes out, where she claims to be. I'll handle the rest. But Ryan, are you sure you want to go down this road? Once you see what I find, there's no going back. Ryan swallowed hard. I need to know, Kev. I can't live like this. They hashed out the details, and Kevin assured him he'd start immediately. When Ryan hung up, he felt a strange mix of dread and relief. He had taken the first step toward uncovering the truth, but he wasn't sure he was ready for what it might reveal. That evening, Amelia mentioned she'd be out late for her book club meeting again. Ryan nodded, feigning indifference, but his mind was already racing. He texted Kevin, letting him know the time and location. Got it, Kevin replied. I'll keep you posted. As Amelia left the house, Ryan watched her from the window. She was dressed more carefully than usual, her makeup subtle but flawless. The perfume lingered in the air long after she'd gone. Ryan spent the next few hours pacing the living room. He tried to distract himself by watching TV, but every minute felt like an hour. He kept checking his phone, waiting for an update from Kevin. Finally, around 10 p.m., his phone buzzed. It was a message from Kevin. She's here. With a guy. Got photos. Call me later. Ryan stared at the screen, his chest tightening. He didn't need to ask who the guy was. He knew. And now, there was no denying it. When Amelia returned home later that night, she seemed relaxed, even cheerful. She kissed Ryan on the cheek and asked how his evening had been. He forced a smile, nodding. But his stomach churned at the thought of where she had been, and with whom. As she went upstairs to bed, Ryan stayed behind, gripping his phone. The pictures Kevin had since sat unopened in his inbox. Part of him wanted to delete them, to pretend none of this was happening. But he knew he couldn't. With trembling hands, he opened the first image. It was Amelia, sitting at an outdoor cafe with Liam. Her hand rested casually on his, her smile radiant. They looked comfortable, intimate, like a couple deeply connected. The next photo was worse. Liam leaning in, whispering something in her ear. She laughed, her head tilting back. The image radiated a carefree happiness Ryan hadn't seen in her for months. The final picture was the most damning. Liam and Amelia standing beside her car, their bodies close. Her arms looped around his neck as they kissed. Ryan stared at the images, his vision blurring with unshed tears. He felt like the air had been knocked out of him. His worst fears weren't just confirmed, they were undeniable. But amidst the heartbreak, a spark of resolve ignited within him. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Ryan barely slept that night. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The images of Amelia and Liam burned into his mind. Her laughter, her touch. It felt like she had taken everything they'd built and handed it to another man. Betrayal turned into a gnawing anger that kept him restless until dawn. By morning, Ryan had a plan forming in his head. He wasn't a man to act on impulse. If Amelia had been calculated enough to carry on an affair, then he would respond with equal, if not greater, precision. He couldn't let his emotions rule him. Not yet. At breakfast, Amelia was her usual self. She hummed as she scrambled eggs, pausing to sip her coffee. Lily sat at the table, giggling at a cartoon playing on a tablet. The scene looked so normal, but Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that he was watching strangers in his own home. "You're quiet this morning," Amelia said, glancing at him. "Just tired," Ryan replied, forcing a yawn. "Long night." She nodded, her focus shifting back to the stove. He studied her carefully, searching for any signs of guilt. But Amelia seemed calm, even content. It made his stomach churn. Ryan left for work shortly after breakfast, but instead of driving to the office, he parked at a nearby lot and called Kevin. "What did you find out last night?" Ryan asked without preamble. Kevin sighed on the other end. "You're not gonna like it, man. They were definitely together. I've got timestamps, photos, and audio of them at the cafe. They weren't exactly being subtle." Ryan's jaw clenched. "Audio?" "Yeah," Kevin said. "I used a parabolic mic. They were talking about how hard it's been keeping this under wraps. She mentioned how she feels guilty sometimes, but Liam reassured her. He said, and I quote, "It's worth it for us to be together." Ryan's grip on the steering wheel tightened. "Anything else?" "Nothing actionable yet. No plans to run away or anything like that. But they're definitely deep in this. I'd suggest you keep your cards close for now." "Thanks, Kev," Ryan muttered. "I owe you." "Just hang in there, man," Kevin replied. "And if you need anything else, you know where to find me." Ryan ended the call and sat in silence for a long moment. The confirmation stung, but it also strengthened his resolve. He wasn't going to confront Amelia yet, not until he had every piece of leverage he needed. That evening, Ryan returned home and went through the motions. He played with Lily, helped her with her homework, and joked with Amelia about her cooking. It was excruciating, pretending everything was fine, but he knew he had to maintain the facade. Amelia announced that she'd be visiting her sister for the weekend. Ryan knew this was a lie. Her sister lived out of state and hadn't visited in months. He nodded nonchalantly, masking his inner turmoil. "Tell her I said hi," he said. Once Amelia left, Ryan wasted no time. He searched their shared office, combing through Amelia's drawers, laptop, and documents. If she was careless enough to leave evidence on her phone, maybe she had slipped up elsewhere. In a drawer filled with old notebooks, Ryan found a receipt. It was from a boutique hotel just outside town, dated 3 weeks ago. The room was booked under Liam's name, but the payment was charged to Amelia's credit card. His heart pounded. This wasn't just an affair. It was a full-blown romance, complete with secret getaways. He photographed the receipt and tucked it back where he found it. That night, he sat in his truck again, scrolling through the photos Kevin had sent and the evidence he had gathered. Every detail painted a clearer picture of a relationship built on deceit. But it also gave Ryan an edge. He was no longer just a betrayed husband. He was a man with a plan. The next step would require precision and patience. Ryan wasn't ready to confront Amelia yet. He needed more time to gather every shred of evidence. But one thing was clear. This wasn't just about a broken marriage anymore. It was about reclaiming control of his life. The weekend dragged on in Amelia's absence. The house felt hollow without her, but not in the way Ryan might have expected. He didn't miss her. Instead, he felt a simmering anger every time he thought of where she might be and who she was with. Ryan busied himself with Lily, taking her to the park and baking cookies together. He wanted to shield her from the storm brewing in their home for as long as possible. She was innocent in all of this, and he wasn't about to let Amelia's choices taint her childhood. But when Lily went to bed that night, the silence was unbearable. Ryan sat in the living room, nursing a whiskey and staring at his phone. He hadn't told anyone about the affair, but the weight of it was crushing him. He needed someone to talk to, someone he could trust. He scrolled through his contacts until he found the name, Ethan Jacobs. Ethan had been Ryan's best friend since high school. They'd been through everything together: breakups, career changes, even the death of Ethan's father. If there was one person who wouldn't judge him, it was Ethan. Ryan hesitated for a moment, then hit call. Ethan answered after a few rings, his voice warm and familiar. "Ryan, what's up, man?" "Hey," Ryan said, his voice heavy. I need to talk. It's serious." Ethan's tone immediately shifted. "You okay? What's going on?" Ryan took a deep breath. "Amelia's cheating on me." The words hung in the air, heavy and raw. Ethan didn't respond right away, but Ryan could hear him exhale sharply. "Damn, are you sure?" "Yeah," Ryan said, his voice cracking. "I've got proof. A lot of it. She's been seeing some guy, an old boyfriend from high school." "Liam?" Ethan asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. "That guy?" Ryan's stomach dropped. "You know him?" "I met him once years ago," Ethan explained. "Amelia introduced us at some reunion thing. He seemed cocky, like he thought he was God's gift to women. I never liked the guy." Ryan nodded, though Ethan couldn't see him. "He's back in town, and they've been sneaking around for months. I hired Kevin Dawson to dig into it. He got me pictures, recordings, even receipts. There's no denying it." "Jesus," Ethan muttered. "I don't even know what to say. What are you going to do?" "I don't know," Ryan admitted. "I feel like I'm stuck. I want to confront her, but I don't want to make a scene. And I don't want Lily to get caught in the middle of this." "You're thinking ahead, and that's good," Ethan said. "But you can't keep this bottled up forever, man. You need a plan. Have you talked to a lawyer?" "Not yet," Ryan said. "I'm trying to get all my ducks in a row first. I don't want to go into this blind." Ethan paused, then said, "Look, you're doing the right thing by taking your time. But don't let her walk all over you, You deserve better than this." "Thanks, Ethan," Ryan said, his voice soft. "I just needed to get it off my chest." "Anytime," Ethan replied. "And if you need backup, you know I've got your back." That night, Ryan felt a little lighter. Talking to Ethan had reminded him that he wasn't alone, even if it felt that way. He couldn't let Amelia's betrayal define him. He had to stay strong, for Lily, for himself, and for whatever came next. As he drifted off to sleep, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. It was a message from Kevin. "We need to talk. I found something new." Ryan's stomach twisted. What could Kevin have uncovered now? Whatever it was, he had a sinking feeling it would change everything. Ryan called Kevin first thing the next morning. His heart raced as he waited for the private investigator to pick up. Kevin answered after the first ring. "Ryan, we need to meet," Kevin said without preamble. "I found something you're going to want to see." "More evidence?" Ryan asked, gripping his phone tighter. "It's bigger than that," Kevin replied. "I'd rather explain in person. Can you swing by my office today?" "I'll be there in an hour," Ryan said, already grabbing his keys. Kevin's office was modest, tucked away in a strip mall next to a nail salon. Ryan had always joked that Kevin needed a bigger, flashier space, but Kevin would just shrug and say, "The work speaks for itself." When Ryan arrived, Kevin was waiting for him with a folder in hand. His expression was serious as he gestured for Ryan to sit. "What did you find?" Ryan asked, his nerves frayed. Kevin slid the folder across the desk. "I've been keeping tabs on Amelia and Liam, as you asked. But something about Liam didn't sit right with me, so I dug deeper. Ryan opened the folder. Inside were documents, bank statements, property records, and photos. As he flipped through them, Kevin explained, "Liam isn't just some old flame," Kevin said. "He's broke. His business went under 2 years ago, and he's been living off credit cards and loans ever since. That boutique hotel you found the receipt for? He's been using your wife to bankroll their little rendezvous." Ryan's blood ran cold. "She's giving him money?" "More than that," Kevin said. "She's been withdrawing cash from your joint account. Thousands over the past 6 months. I traced some of the transactions to accounts under Liam's name." Ryan stared at the papers, his hands trembling. "She's stealing from me." Kevin nodded grimly. "It gets worse. I found some legal records. Liam's been sued multiple times for fraud and unpaid debts. He's a con artist, Ryan." The words hit Ryan like a freight train. He felt a surge of rage, not just at Liam but at Amelia as well. How could she be so blind? So reckless? Kevin leaned forward, his expression softening. "Look, I know this is a lot to take in, but you need to protect yourself. This guy is bad news, and if Amelia keeps funding him, he's going to drag you down with him." Ryan took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. "What do I do?" "Talk to a lawyer," Kevin said firmly. "Get your accounts locked down. Move your money somewhere safe. And, Ryan, you need to decide how and when you're going to confront her." Ryan nodded, his jaw tightening. "Thanks, Kev. I'll handle it from here." The drive home felt like a blur. Ryan's mind raced as he replayed Kevin's words. Liam wasn't just a lover. He was a parasite. And Amelia had let him sink his claws into their life, their finances, their future. Ryan pulled into the driveway and sat in his truck for a long moment. He wasn't sure how he was going to face Amelia when she got back from her weekend with her sister. But one thing was clear. This wasn't just about an affair anymore. It was war. Ryan spent the rest of the weekend preparing. Every move Amelia and Liam had made suddenly felt like part of a larger plot. She wasn't just cheating. She was siphoning money to a man who could destroy their future. Ryan's anger simmered, but he forced himself to stay focused. He had to act carefully, deliberately. First thing Monday morning, Ryan took a personal day from work and met with a lawyer. Her name was Danielle Mercer, and she came highly recommended. She greeted Ryan with a firm handshake and a no-nonsense attitude. "Tell me everything," Danielle said, sliding a notebook across the table. Ryan recounted everything he had discovered, the texts, the hotel receipt, the photos, and finally, Kevin's findings about Liam's financial troubles. Danielle listened intently, jotting down notes. When Ryan finished, Danielle leaned back in her chair. "You've done well to gather all this. It'll help if this goes to court, but right now, we need to protect your assets. First, I'll draft an order to freeze your joint accounts. This will prevent Amelia from withdrawing any more money." Ryan nodded. "What about our home? The mortgage is in both our names." "That complicates things," Danielle admitted. "But if we file for divorce and you can prove misconduct, like the financial theft, you'll have a strong case to keep the house. For now, don't move out. It's important that you remain the primary occupant." Ryan clenched his fists. "And what about custody of my daughter? I don't want Lily caught in the middle of this." "Family court prioritizes stability," Danielle explained. "If you can prove Amelia's negligence or misuse of resources, it'll work in your favor. But we'll need to tread carefully. Judges don't like it when children are dragged into these disputes." Ryan exhaled slowly, trying to absorb everything. "What do you recommend I do next?" "Lay low," Danielle said. "Freeze the accounts, document everything, and keep your interactions with Amelia civil. When you're ready to serve her with divorce papers, we'll make sure it's airtight." Ryan shook her hand, grateful for her calm and methodical approach. For the first time in days, he felt like he was regaining control. That afternoon, Ryan followed Danielle's advice. He visited the bank and froze the joint accounts, transferring his savings to a new, separate account. He called his employer's HR department and updated his direct deposit details, ensuring Amelia would have no access to his paycheck. It felt like a betrayal of the life they had built together, but Ryan reminded himself that Amelia had made her choice. She had chosen Liam, chosen deceit, chosen theft. Now, she would face the consequences. By the time Amelia returned that evening, Ryan was back in the house, playing a board game with Lily. He looked up as Amelia walked through the door, her smile wide and casual, as if nothing had happened. "Hey," she said, setting her purse down. "How was your weekend?" Ryan forced a neutral expression. "Good. Took Lily to the park. How was your sister?" Amelia hesitated for a fraction of a second, a flicker of guilt crossing her face. "She's good. It was nice to catch up." Ryan nodded, not pressing further. He wouldn't tip his hand, not yet. Instead, he watched her carefully, noting the way she avoided his eyes, the faint tension in her voice. After Lily went to bed, Amelia poured herself a glass of wine and sat on the couch. Ryan joined her, his stomach churning. Every instinct told him to confront her, to demand answers, but he held back. He needed to wait for the perfect moment, a moment when she couldn't deny the truth. As Amelia scrolled through her phone, Ryan studied her. She seemed oblivious to the storm brewing around her. But that was fine. Let her feel safe. Let her think she was still in control. Because soon, everything would change. The week that followed was a balancing act for Ryan. Every interaction with Amelia felt like a test of his composure. Each time she smiled at him or asked about his day, he had to swallow the bile rising in his throat. But he kept his facade intact, waiting for the right moment. Meanwhile, Kevin continued his investigation. Every evening, Ryan received updates, more photos, audio recordings, and even a few details about Liam's recent financial scams. It was a mounting pile of evidence, each piece sharper than the last. By Friday evening, Ryan had everything he needed. The accounts were locked down, the legal paperwork was in progress, and he was armed with undeniable proof of Amelia's affair and theft. It was time. After dinner, Ryan asked Lily to go upstairs and play in her room. She skipped off, oblivious to the tension building between her parents. Amelia began clearing the table, humming softly to herself. "Amelia," Ryan said, his voice calm but firm, "we need to talk." She paused, glancing at him with mild curiosity. "What's up?" "Sit down," he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. Her brow furrowed, but she complied. "You're scaring me a little. What's going on?" Ryan took a deep breath, pulling out his phone. "I know about Liam." The color drained from her face. For a moment, she froze, her mouth slightly open as if searching for a response. What are you talking about?" she stammered. "Don't," Ryan said sharply, his voice like steel. "Don't insult me by lying. I know everything. I've seen the texts, the photos. I know you've been meeting him, using our money to fund your little adventures." Amelia's hands trembled. "Ryan, I can explain." "Explain what?" he snapped, his voice rising. "Explain how you've been sneaking around behind my back? How you've been draining our accounts to support a man who's nothing but a con artist." She flinched at his words. "I didn't mean for it to get this far," she said, her voice breaking. He needed help and I thought." "You thought what?" Ryan interrupted. "That you could betray me, steal from me, and everything would be fine? That I wouldn't notice?" Tears welled in her eyes. "I was unhappy, Ryan. I didn't know how to tell you. And Liam, he made me feel alive again." Ryan let out a bitter laugh. "Alive? He's using you, Amelia. He's broke, a fraud. And he's playing you for every penny you're worth." She shook her head, sobbing. "It wasn't like that. He loves me." "Loves you?" Ryan said, his voice cold. "He loves your money. That's it. And you've jeopardized everything for him." Amelia buried her face in her hands, her sobs racking her body. But Ryan felt no sympathy. The woman he loved, the mother of his child, had shattered their life for a fantasy. When her cries subsided, he spoke again, his tone flat. "I've already contacted a lawyer. The accounts are frozen, and I'm filing for divorce. You won't touch another cent of mine." Her head snapped up, panic flashing in her eyes. "Ryan, please, don't do this. We can fix this. We can go to counseling." "It's too late for that," he said. "You made your choice, Amelia. Now you'll have to live with it." Ryan left her sitting at the table, her face pale and tear-streaked. He climbed the stairs and knocked softly on Lily's door. She opened it, beaming up at him with her innocent smile. "Ready for bedtime, kiddo?" he asked, his voice softening. "Can we read 2 stories tonight?" she asked. "Of course," Ryan replied, scooping her up in his arms. For her, he would stay strong. For her, he would weather the storm. But downstairs, Amelia sat alone, staring at the wreckage she had caused. For the first time, she realized just how much she had underestimated Ryan, and just how much she stood to lose. The weekend was a tense blur. Amelia tried to plead with Ryan, but he refused to engage beyond the essentials. Her sobs and apologies echoed through the house, but Ryan hardened himself against them. Each tear felt manipulative, an attempt to erase the damage she had done. Ryan spent most of his time with Lily, shielding her from the chaos brewing in their home. He took her to the park, helped her build a puzzle, and read her favorite books. The normalcy of their routine was a stark contrast to the turmoil in his heart. Amelia stayed in the guest room that night. Ryan didn't have to tell her to. It was clear there was no going back. The sight of her retreating into that room, defeated and broken, gave him no satisfaction. But it was necessary. On Monday, Ryan's lawyer filed the divorce papers, complete with evidence of Amelia's affair and misuse of funds. Meanwhile, Kevin continued his work, tracking Liam's activities. It wasn't long before Liam's fragile world began to crumble. Creditors closed in, legal notices piled up, and rumors of his financial instability spread through town. Kevin had discreetly passed information about Liam's fraud to the right people, ensuring that his schemes couldn't continue unchecked. One afternoon, Kevin called Ryan with an update. "Liam's on the ropes," he said. "Word is he's trying to leave town." Ryan smirked. "Let him. He won't find a dime here." Amelia's attempts to salvage their marriage grew more frantic. She followed Ryan around the house, begging for forgiveness. "I'll do anything," she whispered one night, tears streaming down her face. "I made a mistake, Ryan. Don't throw away everything we've built." Ryan's response was measured but firm. "You threw it away, Amelia. You made the choice to lie, to cheat, and to steal. I trusted you, and you destroyed that trust. There's no coming back from this." Her sobs turned to anger. "You're being cruel, Ryan. I made a mistake, but we can fix it if you just—" "A mistake," he said, his voice cold. "A mistake is one bad decision. You made hundreds over months. That's not a mistake. That's a betrayal." One evening, Lily asked the question Ryan had been dreading. "Why is Mommy sad all the time?" Ryan paused, searching for the right words. "Mommy and I are going through something tough right now," he said gently. "But we both love you very much. That will never change." Lily nodded, her wide eyes full of innocent trust. "Will you stop being mad at her?" Ryan's throat tightened. "We'll see, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups need time to figure things out." A week after the papers were filed, Ryan received a call from Kevin. "You won't believe this," Kevin said. "Liam showed up at Amelia's office today." Ryan's stomach churned. "What happened?" "Security kicked him out, but not before he caused a scene. He's unraveling, Ryan. Completely desperate." That night, Amelia admitted that Liam had been calling her nonstop. "He's begging for money," she said, her voice hollow. "He says he's going to lose everything." Ryan's laugh was bitter. "Good. Maybe he'll finally understand what it feels like." Amelia didn't reply, her guilt written all over her face. The day of their divorce hearing arrived. Ryan sat across from Amelia in the courtroom, her face pale and drawn. She looked at him with pleading eyes, but Ryan focused on his lawyer's words. The evidence Danielle presented was damning. Photos, financial records, and recordings painted a clear picture of Amelia's betrayal. The judge ruled in Ryan's favor, awarding him primary custody of Lily and the house. Amelia was left with little more than her personal belongings. As they left the courtroom, Amelia approached Ryan. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice trembling. "For everything." Ryan looked at her, his expression unreadable. "I hope you figure out what you're looking for, Amelia. But it's not with me." Months passed.